I find that an absolutely intriguing thing to do, to figure out what the hell is going on with these people, what the hell is happening here, how this works, how it, and the Japanese and the Balinese and the Moroccans are to me endlessly intriguing. I mean, it's the kind of, I'm not, you know, I have a reputation of not being a very scientifically oriented, I'm not a hard scientist type. But in that regard, I am. I really am I want to know what this. So I have the same kind of puzzlement that, you know, that a physicist would have about why some phenomena go about stars or something. I mean, I want to understand them. My main motives are radically cognitive. I wouldn't put it that way because I don't like the idea of cognitive even that way, but they are to interpret and understand these, and I enjoy that. I enjoy just figuring them out and figuring out how to get along with them and figuring out how to live with them and figuring out what makes them tick. I just find that extraordinary. And being allowed to do it without anybody telling me how to do it. That's the other thing you do have in the field. You're your own person and you can do what you want. I mean, there are constraints, so millions of constraints, but they're not the constraints of professors and courses and so I just find it endlessly fascinating. I find the Japanese and the Balinese and the Moroccans, the three groups I worked with, endlessly. I could spend the rest of my life just trying to figure out what the hell they're all about.
Was that, I mean, you started in philosophy. So were there any larger questions? I mean, the earlier generations of anthropologists were trying to find out whether there was a common humanity or, you know, very general questions about human nature and human progress and so on.
I was here as an undergraduate, and the most wonderful part about being here is having to rethink all that MIT has meant to me and try to put it together. And to my surprise, I can answer a question now that was asked when I was the first year in graduate school after being sort of half in the program for 2 years as an undergraduate. In my first seminar, Dan Lerner said, the chairman at Yale of the department called me. They have a terrible problem. Why do the women stay in the program at MIT and leave after a year or a semester at Yale? And nobody had an answer at the time. And I realize now it's not just that a lot of the colleagues and the professors had very intelligent, highly educated wives with PhDs. It was also there was no hierarchy in the department. Absolutely no hierarchy. And so at the very beginning, the women who maybe don't count as the 50 years because they were just getting their degrees.
Your host, and our guest is James Scott, Sterling Professor of Political Science, Professor of Anthropology, and co-director of the Agrarian Studies program at Yale University. The author of several books, including Seeing Like a State, Professor Scott's research concerns political economy, comparative agrarian societies, peasant politics, Southeast Asia, theories of class relations, and anarchism. Today we'll talk with Professor Scott about his newest book, The Art of Not Being Governed. It's the first ever examination of the volumes of literature on state-making that evaluates why people would deliberately remain stateless. Welcome, Professor Scott.
Happy to be here.
Let's begin with an overview of your book. Tell us about it.
The book is a study of perhaps 100 million people who live in the highland areas between Southeast Asia, China, and India. So this is an area above 200, 250 meters in the highlands of Vietnam, all of Laos, a little corner of Cambodia, northern Thailand, northern Burma, the southern, large southern provinces of China, Yunnan, Guangxi, and Guizhou, and also northeastern India. And this is an area where I argue these 100 million or so people who speak many different languages, who belong to many different ethnic groups, they are often seen as primitive people who have always stayed, who have never been, in a sense, touched by states. My argument is that these people for the last 2,000 years have been running away from states, from taxes, from disease, from wars, from conscription, and over time they have moved into the hills, as states have displaced them, the Chinese state in particular, and that they have become ethnic groups in the hills. So they're not primitive people.